And welcome everybody to Tech Talk, and we're back after 1 week of a break, and we're here with this time just me alone as a host. Maybe someday someone's going to join me, but welcome down to Tech Talk. Welcome down to the start of the revamp of Tech Talk, because I think we've got a lot more ideas coming up. So if you're here with us, wherever you're joining us from, whether it is on YouTube, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Facebook, great. Stay there. We've got a full 45-minute show for you. And remember, Tech Talk is not just about me asking questions. It's also about you asking us questions. Whether you have thoughts, whether you have some feedback based on whatever our guest is going to talk about, or you've got some questions for our guests, leave them in the comments area from whichever platform you are watching us from. And if we have time, we're going to bring them up. If we don't have time, we'll answer them after the show. So Tech Talk Friday is brought to you by Necole. Necole, our learning experience platform, now there to accelerate your learning and development for skilling communities and also to create a knowledge bank. So if you want to get your subscription of Necole today, go on to necole.app and get your subscription. There's a promo code that just went by, Roshan T Lead, and you get a 30% discount if you get your Necole today. Now, speaking about Necole, we're not going to forget this. We do pick of the week, and this time around, I'm a user of Necole, of course. And one of the things is I came across this article, and I want to share this article with you guys. How to digital transformation changing project management. And because I'm a project management junkie as well, so this really caught my eye today. And I went about reading this and with some key things. And of course, most businesses are having to become digital business. And if we say digital transformation, incorporating digital tools in all aspects of its company's operation, fundamentally changing the business processes and how companies engage with customers. That's a way to say what digital transformation is. But there are big questions, right? Like, what are the steps to transform? Digital transformation could be causing security risks. And will AI ever replace project management? So I delved into that article, and here are some little points on how digital transformation is changing project management. Some things I learned. Asynchronous communication. So there's really no need to only communicate during meetings anymore. It can happen on the go by using tools like Slack, Chanty. There's less management because days of siloed and guided teams are coming to an end. You can use work management tools like Airtables or Monday.com, and it's a great way to keep everyone seamlessly updated on what's going on. And it's a greater results focus. Additional to that effect of using work management tools, it's clear, trackable results that everyone can follow as they move along. Analytics at the forefront. So data is key. It's becoming ubiquitous to everybody, and it's a great tool to make very good informed decisions as the project moves along. And of course, remote teams, because now you don't need to fly everyone to the project site to do the project. You don't need to have everyone in a meeting room to do those things. You can actually work with anyone from anywhere around the world. And that actually opens the door to work with more vendors, more suppliers, more stakeholders, more partners as the project moves along. So if you want to check out this article, the link will be dropped on the comments area. But how I discovered this article is interesting. Necole has a feature called My Interests. It's our AI that is running there. That AI actually knows me. It knows what I'm interested in and suggests 5 different articles every day to me. And I found this today when I was going through it, and I thought I should share it with you guys. So if you guys get on Necole, that's something you can look forward to. All right. So there's also a reason why we were talking about digital transformation, because today is when we are going to start that process of actually discovering. It's been now 2 years since the pandemic. It's been time now that companies have gone through a lot of changes and have to accelerate themselves to the changes. It was coming, but they had to accelerate themselves. So let's talk about this a little bit, and let's bring on our guest for this week. And we're going to go back to the origins, the first host of Tech Talk, and also someone who is a partner in crime, the co-founders of Leaderonomics. Let's bring on Hui Ming and also Roshan Thiran onto the screen. Hello, both. Hello. Welcome.
Hey, Nigesh.
And Roshan, welcome back to Tech Talk.
Yep.
I know
Yep.
that
Long
I
time.
took over the reins from you, but now it's time to bring you back in for at least one time before we move through this new tech talk that we're building right now. Okay, let's get into it. Today, we're talking about the different phases of digitization or digital transformation. Let's first talk about Leaderonomics itself. It's been what, 14 years? 14 years now. And I think we were talking off air before we got on, but let me direct this question to you, Roshan. Did you imagine Leaderonomics ending up where we are here today? Was this the planned vision? Was this where you were trying to head to and getting everyone to move towards to?
Well, I think it's yes and no, lah, right? I mean, was this planned? Probably not. I think the vision is still very much about transformation, right? And whether it's transformation in all sense of the word, lah, right? How do we transform a nation? And the steps towards it was really to build communities that are resilient, that have love. It's not community of fear, but communities that share, care, and enable and empower each other, right? And to build those kind of communities, you go backwards and you say you need to make sure the leadership of those communities are sound, right? You have good leadership, and everything rises and falls from your leadership line. You've seen that, Dato' Nora just sent me an article about leadership in Indonesia, and you say, wow, relative to the leadership in many other countries and how Indonesia has transformed because of leadership, right? So that vision is still there, right? I mean, it's about starting with leadership and enabling the leaders to be better, right? And when a leader gets better, the community they serve gets better. Now, as many communities get better and transform, you see nations transform, right? So that vision continues to drive Leaderonomics, continues to drive where we want to get to. The contexts have changed, right? And I think that's where it's very interesting, right? I mean, you asked me, could I imagine a technology-driven company that's totally tech, heavy, to some extent, with people driving that technology. That one was hard to imagine, right? I mean, to see the platforms, to see the stuff that we are spewing out today, that's not so easy. I mean, you can talk about technology or innovation in instructional design, innovation in HR. I think those things, yes, we always wanted to be in the forefront. We always wanted to be the thought leaders in the space of HR, in the space of people, in the space of enabling people, empowering people, managing people, developing people, growing people. I mean, those things, yes, we continue to want to be, and we continue to hope, maybe in Malaysia we are, we want to be the leading cutting edge in those areas, in Indonesia, in Thailand, in India, and all the other countries that we are getting into at this point in time, right? So it's yes and no, right? We've morphed into many different forms. We've had many generations of Leaderonomists, and we look back. Sometimes I forget. Oh yeah, there's this group of people that have worked for us at some point in time, and sometimes I go to LinkedIn. There's thousands and thousands of people who say they've worked at Leaderonomics. So that itself is hard to imagine. But the answer is yes and no, right?
And it's a ripple effect, isn't it? Like those who have joined have gone on to do things, have gone on to do great things. There are those out there with real notoriety and name who actually started some point at Leaderonomics. So let's go to this. I know that both of y'all have a differing view sometimes on this topic. So I'm going to go to Hui Ming to ask this question. Hui Ming, what is digital transformation in your view?
Differing? How do you know we have differing opinions? I don't know. Okay. I mean, I look at it very simply that digital transformation is basically leveraging technology, leveraging digital solutions to actually create value, to create value, enhance value, and to actually enhance experiences for either for customers, business, or even employees. So I look at it as that, if it doesn't do that, then if any transformation that doesn't add value doesn't make sense. So digital transformation is just the form of transformation, but it's a transformation nevertheless. Yeah.
Transformation.
Simple as that. Very simple as that. Yeah.
Right. Nicely said. And Roshan, why do you think it's important? Why do you think it's important that businesses have to adopt a plan for transformation, especially this day and age?
Yeah, and to me, it's not just digital transformation, right? It's transformation in general, right? And it's historic, right? I mean, if you look at the Enlightenment period. Today we call it the Enlightenment, right? But I think when Martin Luther, he opened up the gates to say that God is available for everybody. It's not dictated by a set of, there's no mediator, right? You don't have that church or whatever body to give you access to God. And then from there, it basically created this illusion or created this position, right? That all men are created equal, right? Which then led to the whole America vision, right, which was taking the monarchy or the rule by fear or rule by birth of kings in Europe to this land of freedom. And for 200-300 years, America, that liberty, that every man is equal, kind of went all over the world, right? But today, right, that context is changing, because today I don't think it's about the power. I don't think resides in governments. I don't think power resides in institutions and companies. I think power actually resides in networks. And networks are, you see the Tunisian or the Arab Springs, you see it's networks of people that spark, and nobody actually has that authoritative power to clamp down and get things done. It's all spread out. And so to me, transformation, right, has to happen in organizations if you want to continue to live in this new context of a network world. Has to happen in countries, in governments. It has to happen across the board, right? And digital is a tool, right? I mean, you've got robotics also. People you can say it's digital, but it's physical, right? I mean, it's robotics, it's 3D printing, it's so many things that's physical. There's also biological changes, like the genome mapping project has done with predictive medicine. There's a whole bunch of things happening in medicine, and then there's of course AOT and blockchain and IoT, blockchain and all these other things that's happening in the digital field. So transformation is holistic, right? But it's contextualized to the era that we are in, and this era. And it's scary, right? Because the more I read, the more I get scared, because every big change, right? In the Enlightenment, the 30-year wars and all those wars that created because of what has happened, right? And then later, when we saw the big industrial revolutions of the past and what happened with World War I, World War II, and all the displacement, you kind of get worried that it's going to lead to displacement, and displacement is going to lead to some sort of instability, and there's going to be some form of issue, right? So if people can learn to transform, even in small areas, when this displacement will be minimized, but when there's no transformation, then you're going to see huge displacement, and you're going to see exactly what happened in the past. And history is a good indicator of what is to come. So I mean, to me, that's why it's so urgent to transform, right? Because we want to get to this space. We want to be playing in the context of the 21st century, because it's changed, and you cannot go back to that feudalistic rule by authority, or rule because I'm born the king's son. That's how that's my right. It's different, It's a democracy, but it's even more open, right? Because now the power is in individuals, right? I mean, that's what blockchain is, right? Everywhere you're distributing even that, right? You're distributing data to even at the individual level, right?
Right. And something very curious you said there, and it suddenly brought this image of this graph that I keep on seeing and remembering, where technology drives people towards change, and then drives what they do, their activities, and then drives how they culturally set themselves. But at the same time, whenever it comes to change, whenever it comes to transformation, the biggest resistor is us, people themselves. So Hui Ming, my question to you for this one is, why are people just generally, and even now we saw this in this past 2 years, most of the time change takes a long time, but this is sort of a microcosm, a quick need for change, and there was huge resistance to this change. So why do you think there's this constant resistance whenever transformation or the word transformation comes out?
I think Nigesh, we all know that there's change. There's a process to change, right? So obviously, it's like there's a journey that we have to bring people through, and if kind of that journey is a bit too ad hoc or too impromptu, then people are not able to maybe even accept first, or even to you got to come to a point of where you have to let go certain things, and then you got to change and accept new things and all that. So if I believe that whatever change, whether digital or any other change, right? If the journey, I'm bringing people through the change process, if it's not adopted, if it's not kind of followed, then there's always a chasm, or there's a gap. And then when you have that gap, that means a lot of things, a lot of worries, fears, concerns, confusion is not addressed, then the resistance comes down the road, right? And you're right to say that even we also face it, right? We have been dabbling in going to digital solutions and trying to automate things in our organization. And we were going at a good pace. Then when the pandemic hit and then we had to pivot so fast, we basically leaped through 3 steps on the change process. And when we do that, then people don't understand the need to change that as much. You probably don't buy in that fast, and then you're not able to mobilize the commitment. And when you do that, then you get resistance, and then we go in this whole cycle of trying to convince, trying to sell, trying to influence. So I think because of the pandemic, we pivoted so fast. Certain steps in the change process was missed. And when we miss that, then that's where we have to then now re-educate, get people's buy-in, and to kind of to adopt it. Yeah. So in that sense, but also at the same time, when we are changing, we are changing the wheels while the car is moving. And so that's why, I think that as an organization or maybe other organizations, we do things and then we test and the trials go along the same time. It's not you plan, we don't have time to plan everything nowadays, right? And then have a perfect plan and execute. People execute, try fast, test fast, fail fast, try again. And with that type of cycle of change and trying and failing, people who don't understand failure and who don't and see failure as a negative thing will then go into a negative mode, right? People who see failure as a positive thing to push you to improve it will then actually adopt it faster and see that opportunity. So I think there's mindset shifts that need to take place as well.
That, and also something I noticed for this past 2 years, like usually whatever that we're using right now, all this digital technologies, is not that it came up in this past 2 years. It's been around for 5, 10, 15 years, even longer, some of them. They've been around, but this past 2 years kind of pushed everyone towards the wall. Survivability became a question mark. Am I going to survive if I do not change? And unfortunately, human beings, we are creatures of pain. So we need to be pushed to the wall to pain. And then we start changing and saying, look, we got no choice. We got to do this. But you said something there, which is a great segue to actually a question I want to ask Roshan. So for Leaderonomics itself, yes, I've been there, but I want your perspective of what has been some of those key digital or tech-centric initiatives or innovations that Leaderonomics has adopted that impacted the business and that really sticks out to you. And it doesn't have to be just this 2 years. It could be even from 5 years ago or 6 years ago. But what were those innovations and initiatives, digital or tech, that really sticks out to you?
I think there are many, right? Yesterday I was in the office and I was clearing out. We were kind of reorganizing the office a little bit, so I was clearing out a whole bunch of newspapers that we used to publish, right? I mean, so we used to buy from the Star, about 12 to 16 pages every week, and we would publish our own stuff, and we have all that, but that goes to maybe 1 million people or so. But today our website goes to millions and millions and millions more, because of the reach, right? And we had to make that change, right? I mean, yes, it was great, having it in print, and we love print, but ultimately, that there needs to be that transformation if we want to scale. And I think what drove many of the things, I mean, if you think about our community work, right? Many people said, no, community work has to be touching people physically. You have to go there, hold their hand, and pick them up and touch them. But from March last year, from the MDEC Digital Ninja Camp to all the different pieces that we're doing for Hapsing, to ProLintas, to Toyota, the Eco Challenge, every single one of it has been run virtually. And what we do is take it one step further, right? So some of the kids don't have digital assets, right? They don't have the broadband sticks, they don't have the tablets. All right, let's partner with YTL. Let's partner with the guys that are willing to give us those things and push it out to the kids. And so suddenly, we've been running community. I think we're one of the few, even at the starting point of the pandemic, have already started doing community work, reaching kids in schools, enabling kids to be able to access and bridge the digital divide at an early age, right? So to me, that was outstanding, right? But it took a couple of weeks, as we were hitting the pandemic, to sit down with the youth team and say, look, we got to do this, right? And it happened, right? And the good thing is that we already had invested in technology. We had our LMS, we had Necole, we had a whole bunch of things that was ready to be deployed by the community team, right? But that itself had to happen because in 2016, when we looked at ourselves, we said, look, I think learning is changing. and as part of the contextualization of learning, people don't want to learn until they have a problem. So how do we get to just-in-time learning? How do we deploy learning in a way that makes sense? Because there's too many variables in life. There's too many problems, I cannot learn everything.
Right.
There's just too many, right? So I just need to learn on the go, right? And but there's nothing that gives me learning on the go. It's still, I go to a classroom now, I sit down, and then I say, if only I learned that 3 weeks ago when I was having that problem. Or you forget about it, and 3-4 weeks later, or a month later, or 2 months later, or worse, a year or 2 years later, I remember I learned this in a class somewhere. Let me go and find my binder and stuff like that. It's just much more complex. You just go and Google stuff and try and find a talk or a information and drive that, right? So to me, I look at it as the initiatives that we've done, whether it's to move from print, in our media to digital, to our website, to leaderonomics.com, and then to be able to do that now in Spanish, in Bahasa, in Indonesia, and so on and so forth, right? And also in terms of scaling our work, right? Now we can go to schools all over the world. I mean, we actually went to more countries in the last 2 years than we have done in the last 10 years, right?
Wow.
So we've moved to Cambodia, to
Brunei.
Nepal, to Brunei. I mean, there's so many countries, right? I also forget. I keep forgetting. Keep asking Victor, our community. Hey, say again. What are the 656 countries you mentioned the other day? But that doesn't happen until you have a sound digital curriculum, until you have systems in place, platforms, infrastructure to enable you to scale, right? So to us, like, the journey is really a journey of scaling, right? And initially, the part of the journey is about expertise, right? I need to be really the best instructional design guys. I need to understand the learning space. I need to understand where it's going. I need to be deep in terms of developing content and developing delivery and being very gamified in the way I deliver and stuff. But as I reach a point where I'm expert in that area, now I need to, how do I scale that? And that's where technology comes, right? I mean, so to me, technology is not, it's a bonus for us to scale the work. Now, if you're not an expert, you cannot scale it, So no matter how much access you have to technology, if you don't have that depth in the space, you are not able to take that depth and be able to scale it to the next level, right? So it's a process, right, of getting expertise and depth, having what we call our talent accelerator programs. And today, right, I mean, think of the stuff that you guys are doing, Necole, right? You've taken the talent acceleration, the thought leadership in that space, right? How do we accelerate a person, not just grow a person, but accelerate them, right? And then be able to use a tool like Necole to be able to create accelerators, right? I mean, that cannot happen without all the work that has been done. So it's one by one, get the processes, have the expertise, go deep, and then look at scalability, and then look about how to scale not just access but also delivery, and then ultimately to scale your value proposition all over the world, right? I mean, today, last week or the week before, I think our digital leader Sashim told me, hey, we've got our first Middle Eastern customer, right? And we are sitting here in KL and delivering everything, right? So I mean, we're good, and you are having dialogues with so many companies in the US, right? And our board member Paul Marca is talking to Boeing and a few other companies to say, hey, we need to ensure Leaderonomics comes in and take over some of the learning propositions. That's not going to happen, So it's a process, right? So to me, it's companies need to go to the process, right? And you talk about change, right? We like status quo, right? So I think naturally as human beings, we grieve, right, whenever there's change, because there's a loss. I mean, that's Daniel Kahneman's Nobel Prize, right? He won it because of the loss economics, right? Where when you lose something, it's more important than winning something, right? So, if your boss comes and says, Nigesh, here are 5 positive things about you, and here's 1 bad thing, you're going to be harping on your bad thing for the next 2 weeks. Why did the boss say this 1 thing, right? Even though he said 5 good things. And that's the same when you have a change, right? It's we harp on the fact that something is different in our lives. Unfortunately, and that's where, unfortunately, the world's not going to go back,
I agree.
And I think as Leaderonomics, that was our hardest part. We wanted the world to remain the same, because we have reached a point of, wow, 2019 was like, wow, we are a pinnacle and we're about to, fly with that model, right? But the world changed, right? The good news is that we were ready, right? I mean, I think to some extent, I mean, obviously, now is the hard work of figuring out how to really scale this globally, right? So that's another game that we have to play in the next year or 2, right? So yeah, that's my short answer to a long question, or the other way around.
It's the other way around. It's a long answer to a short question. But there's a lot of things you said there, which I was there to experience it as well. But I also felt some of the problems that came along the way of that. Because yes, you mentioned that whole thing at 2019. I was there. I felt that feeling. We felt like, okay, you know what? We are somewhere where we feel good at, but we know this is that step we got to step on to go to the next step, that launch pad. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, like that step got taken from under us, and we were like, okay, what are we going to do? What exactly are we going to do here? And we were scrambling around trying to find different things to try out with the many different components that we have. I think the good thing is whatever we've done in the past has helped us. All those little components that we have all around helped us. But that process was difficult and was super accelerated. It's like taking a rocket ship and strapping it onto your bottom, just going at it, feeling the fire right at the bottom. And I think we all felt the difficulty. And here's where, Hui Ming, I want to ask you. I think you're known as the person that most speak to, especially when they're facing personal or that human difficulty. So I want to ask you, like, for Leaderonomics itself, because this could be an example for everybody or any organization out there. What was those internal difficulties, feelings, and how did we slowly crawl and get past it? That right now there's an air of actually optimism.
Hmm. What were some of
Dicey
those
question. Dicey
concerns?
question. Dicey question. No, because it's true. It's every company would be facing this, right? And it's a good learning, whatever
Right.
we went through, what
Okay.
they could actually go through, and what they could
I,
actually do about it.
mm, I cannot remember all, but maybe I think one of the things that because of the speed of change and the speed of transforming,
Mhm.
um, we always talk about everybody having a voice, everybody having to be, opinions
Mm,
shared, and
mm,
everyone's consulted. I'm not say consulted, but people know what's going to happen,
yeah.
and people get a choice.
Mm,
I think when we accelerated the process, the element of choice was taken away from people,
mm,
and it became more like do it or do or die,
mm,
It's a do or die thing, basically, and really should literally do or die, right? Financially
mm,
and all that
mm,
stuff. So when an element of choice is taken away and it becomes a forced thing, um, then that's where people start to also wonder, why were opinions not taken in, and
mm,
also is this the right move? Um, and when in a crisis, not we cannot consult everybody, right?
mm,
It's got to be certain people let's take it, let's move, let's decide and move on, because
mm.
then if not, we won't move, and then we'll
Right.
be stuck in the rut for a long time trying to plan and trying to get everybody on board, and then not moving and then sinking at the same time, right?
Mm,
So that's one thing. I don't know, a choice, um, and moving at that pace. I
mhm,
think the other thing that's a sensitive word
mhm.
I have to say is that when we transformed, business cannibalization
All right.
was something that I think was hard to um, make sense of.
Right.
Because you know what is you have a current traditional business,
Mm,
and then there's also then the next new age digital business,
mhm,
which in the line is like there's fear, there's threat, there's like,
mhm,
oh look, is this the new business?
mm,
Will there be is there a fear that things that we were doing and we're doing
mm,
really well
mhm,
potentially could be threatened or could be
mhm,
cannibalized?
mhm,
And then how do we do it? So
mm.
who gets priority of
Yeah.
everything, right? From
Right.
funding to marketing to branding,
Mm,
and so there's always that feeling that
mhm.
which business takes priority, but at a certain phase, every phase has its timeline, right?
Right.
At a certain time where this business has to be the one that's promoted, that's the business that we do. And that's how we
Mm,
look at the company and the group, the company as a group and a portfolio.
mm.
And which one comes in a time where another one is going declining. And then
Right.
when things are to change, which one now becomes the one that anchors the rest of the group also. Lah.
Mm,
So I think those were some of the thoughts that went
right.
through and things that we had to reconcile and to
Mhm,
come to terms with.
mm,
And so there's storming. There was
mhm,
storming between teams. There was storming in the leadership team.
mhm,
And what you said now, today things seems better because I think with all the storming that happened, with all
mm,
the conflicts that took place,
mm,
and as each concern is addressed, maybe not 100% addressed, but as more explanation comes in, more clarity comes in, then people start to accept that actually this transformation is actually good, it's actually opportunity, and there's a way to actually find the synergy between what we call two different business models. And with that, I think that's where we see that there's a lot more potential to bring both the digital solutions, traditional, not say traditional, but people, high touch points, engagements, that's really still very crucial. Blend them together and you actually have a stronger, more complementary solution that we actually bring to customers, and even the employees have to experience it themselves to see it. Yeah.
Right.
So it's a process, it's a journey, but I think we've overcome kind of what's the biggest hurdle in our conflicts internally as well.
Right. And something you said there, which is even the quote unquote traditional business itself, through this process, found opportunities to renew itself, to be very relevant right here, right now, whatever the situation is. It's whether it is a virtual or whether it's in face to face, it's exactly you said, lending or leveraging across all these different opportunities that's there in the business itself that actually brought everyone up. I think it's a realization process, and something you said that, which is about the whole, it was a very collaborative business. It was a very collaborative business. But I think that was the reality for such a long time. And when a crisis struck, it's the learning how to, okay, this is not the time to be extremely collaborative. Something just got to give and something just got to be done. And we just got to go through that first. And people learn from that process as well. And maybe my assumption is that optimism that has come out is because we've learned. We've learned the time to be collaborative, the time to just hunker down and go for it. Roshan, I've got a question because Hui Ming mentioned this. I want to take it to businesses out there, cannibalization of businesses, because this is something that most businesses do worry about. And we've seen this across the ages. Example, Kodak, when they actually first came up with the whole digital camera thing, they could have gone that direction, but they were thinking that's going to cannibalize their film and chemicals business. So what is your view on business cannibalization? Should businesses be afraid of it or should they embrace it?
Yeah, and I think this is more of a long-term versus short-term sort of indicator, right? So I mean, on the short term, you want to have cash, and the stable core business always provides that cash, right? And the long term, the market will erode, it, right? So you know that, but you don't know how long is long term, right? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 5 years, 15 years? You have no idea, right? Because you don't dictate the market, right? So for me, it's and when I was running the staff for a little while, we had the same problem, right? Print is gone, right? At the end of the day, but print will never go, right? Because there's always going to be 5% or 10% of the population that want print products, right? But it's not going to be 80%. It's not going to be 90% in the past. So there's always going to be a population that demands that sort of service that you provide, which you call your core service. And for me, it's understanding the reality of the market. I think we have to understand and say, look, where are we? Is this a 3 year away, 5 year away, 7 years, or at least do some guesstimation? And it's not so easy, but you can sort of guesstimate. And I think for us, it's like looking at the HR leaders and the sort of learning leaders out there. When are they going to retire, right? Because you start to look and say, okay, as they sort of move on, a new generation will come in, which may have very different ideas on what learning is or organizational learning is, and you can actually start the process of educating them towards that space, right? So I think it's going to happen. The reality is that you cannot kill your core base because when you do that, you just lost your cash flow, right? Unless you're highly invested. So if you're a Grab, who cares, right? You got 4 billion in cash and all these things. You continually have 4 or 40 billion all the time coming in. Who cares, right? So if you're highly funded, you can just say, look, let me just go and zoom in on this, and I don't care about whatever else that I built before. I can just go into GrabPay and this and that, and I don't really care about this piece of the that really kickstarted our business. But most businesses need to balance this, right? They need to say, I need some form of operating cash. But I need to make sure I do this. Now, the mistake I think most businesses make is that we get too focused on the core business, that we lose focus, because you always focus on the one that's bringing the bread and butter in, right? You tend to lose focus. I think one of the things where I think we did relatively better in the sense that Hui Ming and I, we decided to split our portfolio, right? Where one of us took care of the core biz and the other person said, let's, we take care of the digital biz, and equally we represented the voices of both the business concern, right? Now, organizations, sometimes may not have that luxury of saying, we get, kind of equally, invest in the digital or the core base and the new base, right? But I think that those were one of two things I think helped us a little bit to say, I don't care, we put some resources. And I know Hui Ming and I will fight all the time internally between core base and digital base. I'm like, no, I want this, and she said, no, we want this, and we have only X amount of resources, and we will have to figure it out. But at least there's a dialogue going on at a very senior level to make sure that there is some form of emphasis on both. So I think that is where, and at some point in time, the reality is this: at some point in time, as things dip on, this can be a lucrative business too, but it has to be repositioned, right? So newspapers can be lucrative, but it has to be repositioned for its purpose. You have to look at a different business model, not the mass. You it's not about selling so many newspapers and you make money on the ads. It's going to be something else, right? Likewise, the physical learning workshops and so on will continue to exist, but it may not be at the volume and quantum as before. So how you reposition that business so that it still is a high margin, maybe low volume, but high margin business. On the flip side, you have a high volume, low margin new biz, right? That replaces your previously, high volume, high or medium margins or low margin business, right? So you will see that happening, but you need to be very clear that this is the game and be very resolute. The funny thing is that it happens to me too many times. I'm like, I really can this new biz, and you kind of like, maybe I should just focus back on the old biz, and then you're like, okay, you got to keep telling yourself, no, you're committed to this, let's go all the way. And likewise on the core base, we're committed to transform it to a new value proposition, let's go all the way, right? And it's painful, but we get there. But when we get there, you have that optimism, because people can start to see, oh, okay, there is commitment on both sides of the equation, right? We're equally committed to the core base, to defend it. So it's like this, I'm going to defend the core base to the end, right? We defend it and we try to figure out as to become the player of the core base, right? You ultimately will fight until you become the player or the only player, right? But then it's still a lucrative base, right? But on the other side, it's not about defending, right? It's about it's about going there, new markets, it's about scaling, it's about growing, and it's about really awareness building for it to really succeed. So very different operational, technical imperatives, but we have to, and you may have to create that silo, unfortunately, especially if the business used to be one, you may have to actually create that, because it's going to be operating in two very different spheres.
Okay.
In fact, actually, if I add to that, right, I think you asked, it's 14 months ago, we were not crisis proof. Today, actually, I feel that the balance of portfolio of products that we have, because of going through that and keeping the core as well, if another crisis hits us, I'm actually more confident that we've got a good basket of goods or basket of services that we would be crisis proof already. And I think that's the pain that we went through, and I'm actually much more confident of how this all going to turn out.
Right. And I guess that's where that optimism is coming from, because now it doesn't feel like there's no plan. Now it feels like there are very concrete plans that can be used quite quickly. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause from all these serious questions for a moment. This used to be something that Roshan did, and I'm actually glad I get to do this to him instead. He used to do this thing called Test the Guest Challenge during Tech Talk, and I really wanted to bring this back at some point. I'm glad I'm bringing it back for this episode.
Not the right time to bring it. Next episode,
Too bad. I need to do this to you at least once, because you've been doing this to all the other guests. So we're gonna have some.
I will stay silent. Let all the questions go to Roshan.
No. Each one of y'all get one. So there's going to be some random fire questions. It's quick fire round answers from both our guests here, which is Roshan and Hui Ming, and each one will get a question. I'm going to leave the order of the questions to our producer, Shashi, who's on the background. So Shashi, kick it off. Let's bring up the first question. Let's see. So Roshan, trick or treat?
Trick lah.
Trick.
Prefer to play pranks on people.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, next one. Let's go. Hui Ming, name your ideal holiday destination.
Switzerland.
Oh, okay, interesting. Next one. What is about work that annoys you? Oh, I want to ask
Wow.
Roshan this one.
That will take the whole night.
Yeah, exactly. Everything annoys me, you know.
Quick,
Well,
quick,
I think the
one.
one thing is
Hui Ming annoys you.
the most annoying thing for me is a non-productive is non-productivity lah. You know, I think that I'll just summarize it in a very nice way. Non-productivity
Oh,
annoys me.
non-productivity. Right. Maybe he's being nice right now. Okay, next one. Hui Ming, if you were to commit a crime, who would you do it with?
Roshan, because he's got connections that can pull us out of prison.
I didn't know that, you know.
Somehow
So
lah,
all
you
our
will do it
TikTok
lah.
listeners,
No, it's just that I
Somehow.
don't get caught, is it?
Call Roshan. LinkedIn.
Roshan knows everybody, the
now,
whole
do
world, so
something.
okay lah, perfect.
All right. Next question.
Aiyo.
What type of lie is acceptable to you, Roshan? This
Wow,
one for you.
this what kind of questions are these? I think the only one I would accept is if it's a life or death situation, right? Because if you don't, it causes you. I mean, I'm thinking about Schindler's List and stuff, right? Where if you don't lie that I'm a Jew or this and that, you would potentially lose your life, right? I think that's acceptable. Yeah.
Okay, life and death situation. Let's go to the next one. What activity do you think is better done virtually? Hui Ming.
Meetings. I think we save a lot of time, and because we are all have a screen fatigue, we finish faster, we are more efficient.
Actually, I need to reframe how I look at it. I'm actually thinking that I don't want this virtual meeting, but you have a point there as well. All right,
Yeah,
next
man.
one. If you heard something you were not supposed to know, what
Wow.
would you do? Roshan.
Nothing actually. I don't think I would do anything. Right? It will just remain in the embers of my mind
And the
for the
embers of
opportune
Roshan-
moment.
And for everyone out there, the embers of Roshan's mind is a very big cabin with a lot of things inside. So it takes time to find those things. So it's good. It's a good thing. Next one. Ayo. Describe your perfect date
I'm glad
night.
you got that.
Wait, this is you.
Oh my. But to be honest, it's really just to chill in front of a good movie at home with no kids, no disturbance, nothing.
Yeah.
That's the perfect date night.
Poor lady.
That is a person who is okay. I'll be careful when I say this. As you get older, those are the kind of things that you want. All right.
Correct.
Next question. Sleep or food?
Oh, easy. Sleep. 100%.
But
Food
you
not
don't
important to me.
But you don't sleep.
Yeah, I
Alright.
need sleep. That's why I prioritize sleep over food.
It's to live.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And this next question, Shashi, is not in the question list. I'm actually going to shoot it out. This next question for both of you. First, let's start with Hui Ming. What is one tech trend that you are super excited about?
Predictive sciences.
Predictive scientist. Yo.
Predictive sciences, yeah.
Wow.
I
All
like
right.
to know things. I like the crystal ball.
Someone buy Hui Ming an 8-ball. She can shake and then get the answer. Roshan, tech that you are excited about.
Yeah, I think it's about something if you look at it is as machines have taken over what we call physical work lah, right? And now it's starting to take over cognitive work, which is analysis and all the data mining and all these things, right? I think the third area, if you look at a human being, we're good at physical stuff, we're good at cognitive stuff, we're also good at emotional stuff, right? And I think some of the new stuff that I'm seeing where computers or AI and other things are going into emotional sort of areas, right? I think that's rather interesting because I think as human beings we're lazy, right? We ultimately are physically made, but we are lazy, so we get machines to do it better. We have a great mind, but machines do it better now. And I think the next thing is that we're really good emotionally, we're relational creatures, but we'll figure out how to make machines do that even better. So then we have a really lazy human that just like those movies Wall-E that just sit in a ship and just become fat bloats.
Or we start doing different things. I have to add to that one. For me, what's exciting is because I just read up on this and finished that read yesterday, is quantum computing. Yes, the nerd in me. Quantum computing. That's going to shift us from ones and zeros computing to multiform computing. That's something I really want to see. All right. So we're coming near to the end of the show, but I want to pick some questions which came actually in the comments. And this one actually came from Varinder Pal Singh Hira. So let's bring that up. So his question here: digital transformation is generating a fierce debate among policymakers, economists, and industry leaders about the social impact. What could be the quick wins that get the buy-ins from these groups? Roshan, Hui Ming.
Um, for me, I think the biggest problem is lack of vision for many leaders lah. Whether it's government, whether it's and you can see this lack of leadership. I mean, the U.S. especially when you look at Obama's time and then Trump and then now even worse with I do to some extent. They don't have a clear vision. No, it's always don't. I mean, visions don't start with don't lah, right? Vision starts with with an aspirational goal like Kennedy had. We put a man on the moon and stuff like that, right? And I think the transformation, the reason why it doesn't get so much buy-in is that it doesn't start with the vision, right? The aspirational vision. And I think it's about, we need to go digital, we need to go digital. Why? Survival, this and that. I mean, it doesn't excite people. And to me, I think the quick win is to really sit back and just say, what's purpose? How do you really create purposeful companies or purposeful governments, lah, right? Or purposeful anything, lah, right? Communities and purposeful, and that's why you start to look at the ground roots, rukun tetangas, the communities, right? They become very powerful because they're very purposeful. I want to keep my neighborhood safe. I want to do this. I want to, and we don't see that same sort of purpose, lah. So to me, I feel that is the big gap, lah, in governments, especially in governments.
Right. And especially now with technologies, points of views are getting decentralized rather than centralized. So it's not just one person is going to be saying it.
And we use technology as an excuse, right? I mean, technology becomes the excuse. Oh, we have to go this way. But when you don't have a direction, you don't have a path, right? Anything is right, lah, right? And then you're all over, lah, right? So and then you are, what's happening? And you look at I mean, there's this. It's sad, lah, right? I mean, I lived in the US for so long, and to see its decline, right? You sort of like, it's no vision, right? I mean, leadership with no vision, right? And it's not just now, it's many years, right? Many years, right? And that's the scary thing, is that it's at every empire. If you look at Roman, the Spanish Empire, the British Empire, right? 300 years and then boom, like that, right? In the 1920s, 30s, it just collapsed, right? It's that lack of vision, right? You don't know what to do. It's about defending, right? It's not about moving forward and really and no aspiration, right?
Indeed. All right, and we're going to take another question, and this one is from Eva Lim. This came in actually earlier, and this one I want to direct it at Hui Ming. Actually, many companies went through restructuring to streamline their organizations and reduce cash drain. Some rehired those employees who were laid off, and during the early stages of the crisis, what were the factors should employers take into account upon rehiring? That's one. And should they reskill or upskill these laid off workers upon rehiring?
I think at the point of rehire, certain criteria already has been made to actually decide as who they will rehire that will actually fit into what we call the future direction of the organization, right? And of course, when you rehire, you're obviously rehiring for attitude, probably, and rehiring for potential to be upskilled. And so, I think the two criteria is met, and then upskilling will definitely have to take place to ensure that people can assimilate into the new culture, assimilate into the new way of working in those organizations. So yes, definitely needed.
Okay. All right. We've taken those two questions. I actually have a few others that are there, but for those who unfortunately we can't address the questions, don't worry, we'll get to you. We'll get to those questions in the comments area wherever you're watching the show. And if some of you have missed parts of the show, come back again, watch it again, share with everybody else. And unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show at 49 minutes. Yes, we're reaching that 45-minute mark. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for Tech Talk Friday. And we had Roshan and Hui Ming here for this first rebranded edition of Tech Talk. There's going to be a lot more changes happening. You're going to hear some fun little stuff we're going to start doing in the next episode of Tech Talk. Watch for the preview that's coming up next week. And also, if you want to check out, Roshan mentioned this, right? For your organization, if you're talking about reskilling, upskilling, do drop by Necole.tech. You can find out what the solution stack of Necole is all about that can be implemented for your organization. And if you want to find out what else that Leaderonomics does, go over to leaderonomics.org, find out all the different solutions that are available on leaderonomics.org. And if you want to read countless number of articles, a digest that you just want there anytime, anywhere, go over to leaderonomics.com. So thank you both, Roshan and Hui Ming. I think it was a good exploration to understand this, especially since a lot of change has happened and we're now at a different footing when it comes to transformation. And I think most companies are also at a different step when it comes to transformation. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Really enjoyed having you both here. And I guess to everybody out there, thank you for joining us for Tech Talk Friday. We will see you real soon, which is 2 weeks from now. But don't forget the preview episode next week because we need your help to decide something that is going to happen in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Have a good weekend,
Remember,
everyone.
stay
Thank
safe.
you.